The movie begins by revealing that in 2017, a company called VA Industries revolutionized robotics, led by its genius inventor Elias Van Dorn. VA Industries then manufactured a line of robotics for the military to use to put an end to the global war once and for all. However, this did not stop man's proclivity to violence. Now with the efficiency of robots, Elias is determined to exterminate the causers. By 2020, Elias has invented the most ultimate robotic weapon named Kronos. Shortly, the scene takes us to the VA Robotics, where we meet the legendary Elias, and he has his assistant doctor with him. He says that humans are still ungrateful for what he has given them, and he wanted to launch Kronos, but his assistant, Damien, thinks humans are not ready for it. Regardless, Elias believes Kronos is the only thing that could save Earth from self-destruction, and later on we see Kronos being activated, and Elias going to speak to it. He became mesmerized by his own invention, and elsewhere we meet a youth named Andrew Davis who lives with his sick mom. He's a nice and humble guy who takes care of his mom. However, while he was in the house, the TV suddenly glitched, and in the meantime, we witness the whole city's screen being hacked by Elias. He appears on the screen, announcing the first true artificial intelligence, Kronos. He promises Kronos will solve the problems that have plagued humanity, and after his announcement, suddenly, a fire strikes one of the buildings and several more shots follow. They were being shot against the population, and Kronos was activated to finally exterminate the human race. Buildings begin to explode and the demolition begins on the ground, and bridges were destroyed. Back at the company, Damien asks Elias what he had done, and Elias answers that human beings are cancer that must be removed, and he insists humans must go extinct in order for the Earth to thrive in peace. Elsewhere, Andrew sees the city being destroyed by the AI and finally confronts one of the ships. Shortly after, the scene cuts to 97 years later, and we see Andrew walking up on a bright Earth, and the destruction seems to have disappeared, and Andrew finds himself alone in the forest. Meanwhile, we catch a glimpse of Elias noticing Andrew's wake, and they don't really give us much detail, but from what we can see, the people from 97 years ago remain unchanged. Elias is still young, and Damien seems the same, except now his head glows. Back outside, a girl named Calia narrates how things have been since Kronos was activated, and Kronos understood humans were ones that plagued planet Earth, so it killed over 8 billion people overnight. Of the handful that escaped death, their stronghold descendants camped in the north, hidden from machines. The place was called Aurora, and survivors flee there, believing that it exists. We see Andrew looking for some essentials in an abandoned house, while Damien and Elias were watching him in their screens. They seem to have set him up on something, but Andrew doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing. He sees a village across from him and he heads straight to it. However, he's soon chased by one of the robots and he runs to save his life, only to be saved by Calia. It turns out that Elias had purposefully activated the robot to chase Andrew, and shortly, Calia leaves Andrew but he follows her unnoticed. She soon sees him and points a gun at him, asking what his intentions were, and he confesses that he is not a threat and only begs her to take him with her. In the meantime, Calia notices a unique necklace on him, and she quickly asks if he stole it, and Andrew tells her that he just found it in an abandoned house. He added that he didn't really remember how he ended up there in the first place, and seemed a bit disoriented. She felt bad for him, and she allowed him to tag along, and she tells him that she's heading to Aurora, and after a few miles of journey, they sit by a fire, and Calia offers something to eat to Andrew. He was still unsettled and refuses to eat, and she suggests he eats and gets enough sleep, as she doesn't want to lag on her journey. He promises not to slow her down and continue to stare at the fire, and they chat a bit about Aurora, and Calia tells him that she likes to believe that there is hope out there and that Aurora really exists. She shows him the exact same kind of necklace, which turns out to be a sign of believers, and later on a lighter ray of the sky appears, and Calia tells Andrew that it's a sign Aurora is still out there, being their hope. She takes out a map to show him the distance remaining, and in the meantime, Elias was watching the two on a screen. His machines were steaming it to him, and his target was to find the city of the remaining human beings, Aurora. He plans to find it with the aid of Calia, and we see them coming across a railroad, and Andrew gets obsessed with it. Calia reveals to him that sadly, trains have stopped operating in the past 60 years, which makes him feel bad, and they travel all day passing through the rivers and the rainy forests. At night, they find an abandoned church, and they enter to spend the night there. Inside, Calia orders Andrew to find something to keep them warm, but he soon unknowingly turns on loud music. Calia quickly scolds him and rushes to hide as a robot abruptly arrives to scan the area, and the robots detect any sound made by humans and are determined to extinguish all life forms. Unfortunately, this time, the duo get lucky and were unspotted, and Andrew sincerely apologizes and promises it won't happen again. Calia calms herself down, but just sees the general disorientation of Andrew, and she asks up front if he is from there, but he just confirms whatever she suggests he is, and she only feels sorry for him. The next morning, they wake up to continue their journey to Aurora, and they travel across the forest, and we catch a glimpse of the general appearance of the Earth after humans have gone extinct. The grass is a lot greener, and the waters are now clear as ever. Also, we see Elias's robot taking over the Earth and being seen all over the place. The duo doesn't make any sound that triggers the robot's awareness, but little did they know that they were being observed by Elias the whole time. He was using them to find the surviving community of humans and wanted to abolish their race. At night, the duo came across an abandoned house in the village, and they sneaked in and found it to be clean and functioning. Andrew asks how this was not abandoned, and she answers that maybe the owners left it as it was. They soon get comfortable and settle themselves on the couch, and they find an old camera, and surprisingly, Calia had never seen one. Andrew seems to know how to work it out and takes some pictures, and Calia laughs and gets excited. And soon she starts to share her background, and she used to be from Nexus, one of the human strongholds. She and her family were getting ready to leave for once, but her sister got shot by one of the drones. She was too wounded to be able to make the journey to Aurora, so the family left her there. However, Calia couldn't leave her sister and stayed with her, leaving her family to be ahead of her. Calia also tells Andrew that the family all have an amulet with a GPS tracker for Aurora, and Calia has one, and this is how she's able to track it on the map. The next morning, Andrew wakes up before her, and he sees shadows of people passing by and notifies Calia, and she quickly rushes to escape, but Andrew insists on communicating with them as they might as well be going to Aurora. While they were watching the group from afar, they notice how their eyes were different and somehow altered visually, and soon a little girl spots them, and the rest of the group starts to chase them. The duo start to run for their lives, but Andrew slips over and falls, and Calia leaves him there, and soon the group catches up to him, and in the meantime, Elias and Damien were watching Andrew being held captive, and they were not taking action. Soon, Calia decides to come back for Andrew and tries to rescue him, but she also gets captured by a man. The man soon tore her apart, and seeing this, Andrew got very angry and somehow gained enormous strength to knock the intruders down. He was even surprised by his own power. However, he gets distracted and the man cuts him on the chest. Calia then came to his rescue and killed the man, and shortly she picks him up and takes him to a safe place, and they spend the night there, and the next morning, she approaches to check his wound, but is surprised to find that his internals are mechanical. She backs off in terror and confronts him for being a robot, and he promises to never have known this and confesses he feels something for her, regardless of his robotic nature. She firmly orders him to stay away and leave the place, and Andrew freezes right there, and in the meantime, we see Elias ordering his AI to retrieve Andrew. Andrew was having visions of a Grace with his name on it, and he soon wakes up stranded by Damien. He's keeping him in a tank, and Damien soon reveals that they've manufactured Andrew and given him life. It turns out that they abducted him that night, and they have been using his brain as a subject to develop this robot. It has all the memories and recalls all of Andrew's experiences, and Andrew then asks who he is, and Damien tells him that indeed he is a machine with the real Andrew's brain. Soon Damien states to him that he must have calculated Aurora's location by now and requires Andrew's code. However, However, Andrew states that he is unaware, but soon the man drags Calia into the room and blackmails him into telling him. Now with Kayla's life at stake, Andrew must unveil the code from his own brain. Andrew then has these dreamlike visions of his mother, now fully recovered, and she assures him that there is no such thing as a code, and that he is not some robotic product, but rather her son. She tells him that he still has control, even though he doesn't understand it now, and Andrew's touched by this emotionally and feels content, and Damien was unsuccessful for now, but he changes his plan and reprograms Andrew to harm Calia. He shortly leaves the room, and when Calia approaches Andrew to wake him up, he strikes her really hard on the face, and he then picks her up, strangling her and pinning her to the wall, and Calia manages to get close and kiss Andrew, which finally makes him disarm his defense. He soon remembers her, and the two confide in one another. However, Damien was there, but he gets confused with the robot malfunctioning like this, and soon the duo ran from the place, all thanks to Andrew's strength, because he can knock the robots out. But Calia gets harmed on the way, and Andrew carries her all the way to exit the facility, and Damien was still staying there as the compound exploded due to some fire, and later Damien and Elias discuss the matter, and it is then revealed that Andrew was built with an adaptive algorithm, and his algorithm continues to evolve, which makes him dangerous to control. Elias assures him that they only needed him until they find the location of Aurora, and elsewhere, Andrew has managed to save Calia's life, and she embraces him tearfully. She thanks him and comforts him that his robotic nature won't be a problem to her, and she trusts him as much as a human being. They travel until it gets dark, and at night they sit for a while, and there Calia realizes Damien has taken her map, and without it, Aurora is unreachable. They are then confined to one another for one night, and at midnight, Andrew notices different lights in the sky, unlike the usual rays. He shows California, and she claims it could be coming from Aurora City, and they follow the path where the lights come from last night, and they reach the place in the morning. Calia was excited to finally have found it, but unfortunately, they find no one as they enter the village. It is empty and has prints of human existence, and she cries disappointed and tears her amulet from her neck. Andrew embraces her and tries to comfort her, but shortly Damien appears and pities Calia for her hopes for humanity. He then demands to take Andrew with him, but Calia shoots his face. However, he only glitches and reveals himself to be not a real human being. He continues to pity her for being worthless and predictable, and she soon dissolves into thin air. Elias launches his robotic weapons all over the sky to bomb the entire site, and the duo hides in some basement cave that they found, and Andrew leads the way. They run through it and escape the bombing successfully, and we also catch Damien in the fire, where his eyes have now turned completely white, depicting the fact that he's a robot as well. Back at the duo, they come across a ship that used to be a weapon, and it launches its system as it detects a human presence, and it strangely has a sign that resembles their amulet. The duo realizes that this is one of Aurora's ship, and they soon scan the necklace onto the screens, and this confirms and establishes Aurora's coordinates, and the ship gets ready to departure into their planetary space. In the meantime, as they were about to take off, Elias's missile weapons were arriving and about to strike the ship. But luckily for them, their ship's hard drive was ready to evacuate, and they soon get shot into space and successfully strike the missiles with the ship's pressure. Shortly, we see Andrew embracing Calia as they see Aurora ahead, and back on Earth, we see Elias finally revealing Damien to none other than his robots, where he altered Damien's brain. He executes him as he no longer needs him, and the movie comes to a close as we see Elias sending his entire robotic army to the coordinates of Aurora, ready to finish off humankind.